Welcome, 80s allies, for our first review of Masters of the Universe Revelation.
Yeah.
Boy, talk about a hot topic in nerdom today.
I was not expecting, and I don't know why I wasn't expecting this. I wasn't expecting so much
Animosity?
Yeah, hate, anger. I really wasn't. I was thinking people were going to say, I'm so excited that there's a Masters of the Universe product out there that,
was enjoyable.
Yeah, but there is, and I'm going to say it's a minority at this point. I don't think it's the majority of people. I would imagine, like in most cases like this, it is a very vocal minority that feels like their childhood was raped or whatever the story is. I think the major comment I heard from a lot of people was not enough He-Man, too much Teela.
And therein lies the problem, because you have to understand, and this is where I get to use my degree and you get to use your 20 years of experience, because now we can speak on this. The demographic for He-Man right now, late 30s, early 40s. Somewhere.
I think you've got two demographics. Because you have two sets of kids. You have the kids that grew up with it that are in their mid-40s the way I am. Mm-hmm. And then you have those that grew up with the 2000X version.
Well, there are... Okay, we'll take
so
that
you've got a 20-year separation between those two entities.
But the bulk of the demographics are people who watched it when they were 5, 6, 7, 8.
I don't know that I would go with that. I really think that it's both.
I'm going to stand with that, and the reason why I'm standing with that is because of the kind of backlash that the show has received as far as that demographic goes.
Yeah, it has. Yeah.
Because for the sense that I'm getting from all the backlash is they are just a bunch of people who. Okay, let's break it down. The original cartoon, 22 minutes. Not including commercials.
Correct.
Same storyline. There's a problem. Adam recognizes that there's a problem, pulls out his sword, becomes He-Man.
Knocks Skeletor and the bad guys around a little bit.
And then that's the end of the show.
Makes joke, PSA, close the show. Yeah. It had a very, very strict format. Sure.
And it makes me feel that one of the reasons why some of these people are getting so angry is they either want that. They have short attention spans, they want instant gratification, and if it's not what they want, then they're going to go online and talk horribly about it.
Well, and I don't invalidate an emotion.
No,
you know
I don't.
I mean, if somebody feels that negatively about it, okay. I mean, I'll be the first to say that as a Transformers fan, the Michael Bay movies were not my thing.
Right.
They weren't. It was not Transformers that I wanted to see. It was way too much human, not enough robot for me. Was I a person that went out there and bashed the thing online and said that it was the worst thing in the world and Michael Bay should die and all this stuff? No, I certainly didn't do that. And I don't think anybody should. And I think that's where the issue comes in. It's not in people choosing not to like it. If they didn't like it, you didn't like it, and there was nothing wrong with that. I think my issue is in the manner in which people have engaged Kevin Smith. I mean, there are people out there saying that he should die, his daughter should die for this, and I'm sort of like, are you crazy? Like, what are you doing?
And that's the thing. When because I've gone online for research for this to see other YouTube channels, and it's the same thing. It's a guy with a beard who's sitting in front of a camera in a lazy chair, looking down the lens of a camera, much like I am, telling you not to watch this and then giving their reasons why, and yelling, like dressing down something like like Kevin Smith owes them money. Really angry, toxic stuff.
And I don't really understand why. I don't. Because here's maybe it's a matter of perspective.
Possibly.
As somebody who considers himself a Buddhist, I look at things, you gotta let things go.
Right.
So for me, if I don't like something, and it's the previous thing that I like, I think to myself, well, that's good. I still have my, with I still have my G1.
Right.
I can go watch it anytime I want, and it's there, and it's not going to change, and nothing that happened in the Bay universe or anything that'll come after that will change the fact that this existed first, and I still have it. And that's fine. And I think that's where I wish that some of these folks would say to themselves, I still have my Filmation collection, and it's right here. And it's not going to... Or I still have my original comic books that I'm subscribed, or the 2000X, or whatever version of it that has come along that they like more, that's still there. And it's still there for you to enjoy, and you don't have to... Anything that continues the franchise is a good thing.
Right.
And I recognize that with the Bay movies, because enough time has gone by since those started that people that were kids are now teenagers coming of age. That's another generation that grew up with Transformers, and in this time they've thought, gee, there's not any more movies coming out, maybe I'll go back and look at this other stuff. And they've become fans of the original material because of that introduction that Michael Bay gave them. So you can't look at something new as a negative thing completely. You have to consider that anything that keeps the franchise going is a plus. If it's a franchise you love and you want to continue, great, because 10 years down the road, the next one that might come out might be the one you do like.
And you said something that hit it right on the head. People are looking at this as a religion.
Yeah.
Like, He-Man is a religion. He-Man is going to save them. And people are talking like they have invested money and they aren't getting the return out of this. And it's ridiculous to get so overwhelmed and passionate. And it really makes me go and think, dude, maybe you should find another hobby, because this definitely isn't the one for you.
Yeah.
Because look how passionate you are. I mean, I'm convinced some of these people are either losing sleep over it or doing it for the clickbait because of how much the negative response is getting them to bring to their channel.
Well, that potentially could be the case. It could be a matter of, they're so concerned about the number of views or the interaction, because what you may not understand out there is that regardless of whether or not the reaction is good or bad, YouTube doesn't care.
No.
YouTube just looks at it as interaction. So whether you like, dislike, as far as the algorithm is concerned, it's the same thing.
It is.
So
It really is.
So that doesn't matter. All that matters is that you're getting interaction, getting people to react, and so there you go. I mean, if they're digging for reaction, I'm sure that they're getting it either from people who agree with them or people that are willing to argue the issue. Me, I'm willing to sit there and go, well, if that's what they want to argue about, I'm Sweden over here. I don't.
Well, where I'm coming from is I see it as toxic gatekeeping. I mean, You're going out there, you're saying something negative about a franchise that you have no control over whatsoever, other than your opinion, and so you look down the lens of a camera and you just yell at somebody. What you're doing is gatekeeping and preventing somebody who is on the fence, and you're giving all the spoilers for the show and going into detail why you don't like it instead of letting somebody come up with their own conclusion.
Do you remember going to conventions years ago? You don't see it as much today. But years ago, there used to be that table with the fan fiction.
Yes.
That was extremely adult oriented and would take certain care. Like all of a sudden, Kirk and Spock were gay in this version and all this stuff. Remember that stuff that was out there?
Yeah, it was very, very hard to look at. Lord of the Rings did the same thing with Frodo and Sam.
You don't see near as much of that now at conventions as you did back in the day. But it makes me think. Can you imagine what would have happened if the fan community acted so aggressively then to stuff that was different as they do now? I mean, those people at those tables would have been killed.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. If you're in fandom, guys, the most important thing is acceptance in fandom. From my time in, as old as I am, we were always a place where the outcasts went, that it was a place of acceptance. And I just don't understand how it's broken down into this... Well, it's broken down everywhere, not just in this aspect of life. I mean, everything is like that now. You can't say a word without somebody hating you or somebody taking the alternate opinion. But it's just a shame. That's not the way fandom always was.
And here's where I come from fandom. I got into professional wrestling really early. We're just going to knock that out because I do feel that in some retrospect people are still in the Hulk Hogan era, and that's how they view He-Man. He goes, he fights, he gets beat up, then all of a sudden he hulks up.
Major comeback and he wins and saves the day. Sure.
And there you go. But where I came from, professional wrestling, nobody liked professional wrestling until the Attitude Era, and then all of a sudden all these people showed up, which is, okay, fine, cool, pushes the fandom, and then that fandom dropped off, and I was still a fan of it. In the military, when I was in the Army, I got picked on because I liked comic books. And then all of a sudden you see all the Marvel and Avengers movies come out,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden I'm not the odd one out.
How
but
things have changed.
how things have changed. And I'm not the odd man out, but those people seem to forget how they treated me before they started liking the franchise.
Yeah.
You're looking at the same thing here, and it's
I think
very bizarre.
I think it was the alteration of the media in which, in the way it was distributed. When it was comic books, that's just a bunch of nerds in their parents' basement. When it's a major motion picture, oh, well, that's different.
Oh, you're right.
You know what I mean? Because everybody goes to the movies. And I think that's what really did it. Actually, I think one of the major things for comic books was the X-Men cartoon in the 90s. That seemed to be a major vehicle through which a lot of people started to make a crossover into the Marvel world. Because right about that time, that was happening. And then you had the Spider-Man movies with what's his name? Tobey Maguire.
Tobey Maguire.
All that was sort of happening at the same time.
Well, you're glazing over some certain things because Fox was the area for fandom at that point. Because not only did they have the
X-Files.
Well, not the X-Men cartoon, but they also had Batman, the animated series.
Yeah, they sure did.
And then came Spider-Man and every other thing, and then the WB picked up on certain things, and UPN picked up and got the Marvel license. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below. I'm sure somebody will, because we leave our comments open. But moving forward, I just don't get the harassment and why somebody feels the need to yell and scream, because what they're doing is one person yells and screams, and then one person yells and screams, and then somebody else yells and screams and has print, so they'll put it in print, and then all these people are just feeding off of this Ferris wheel, which is the same thing that you'll see in academia, where somebody will come up with something, and then they'll cite that person, and then the person underneath will cite the person who cited the person, and then it turns into a big giant Ferris wheel.
Yeah. I know for me, it's a shame this is all going on. It's really what this boils down to. And the reason I think it's a shame this is going on is because what I thought of what I watched. And I don't know if you feel the same way. We're going to find out.
We're going to get to that, but really, all you're really doing is, yes, it's okay to have an opinion, to tell somebody you like or don't like it.
Absolutely.
But when you get to the point where you're giving away spoilers and really ruining somebody who's like, man, I really want to check that out, but dude over here says I shouldn't check it out, and I'm going to listen to the opinion of somebody who goes, well, I didn't like it, so don't watch it. That's an issue. I
think the even bigger issue is people that are making remarks that, Kevin Smith should die and his daughter should be hurt.
That's disgusting.
Don't do that. For crying out loud, do not do that. The world is bad enough without wishing horrible things on good people. So don't do that. Kevin Smith has always been I feel the voice of Generation X with regard to movies and so forth. He's really spoken for us. He's a wonderful human being by the account of anybody I know who's met him.
The Wayne Foundation?
Yeah. So let the man alone. And going after his daughter, seriously? That's... Where did you learn that? Certainly not from He-Man.
Well,
Lou Scheimer would be spinning in his grave if that's the type of thing he inspired with the original series was that. Because that was not his goal at all.
Well, where you're coming from is telling him not to do it. I'm not going to tell him what to do or what not to do, but I do get to decide who I hang out with.
There's that too.
Somebody who is going to cast blame on somebody and victimize somebody and then play the victim on top of it, somebody I don't choose to hang out with.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we're going to tell you the exact opposite of what those knuckleheads did, because I thoroughly enjoyed it.
So did I.
Oh, dude, it was great. The best part about it is me wanting more. I wanted more, from the show. As soon as I saw the cliffhanger, I got really upset that there wasn't any more.
There was
just... Let's go episode by episode and break it down.
Okay, so there I am, and I was actually I had a reasonably light day at the shop, so I could sit there and for a Friday anyway. So I could sit there and just I was able to watch most of it throughout the day in between customers, and I watched that first episode, and what I loved was that first X number of minutes plays just like one of the original cartoons, the way you were describing.
It rolled out just like an original cartoon.
And then all of a sudden, everything hits the fan. And it just spins everything up, and you're like, whoa! And it was, I was thoroughly, I was hooked. At that moment, I was completely hooked. The character development is phenomenal. And by the way, this portion of this, we are going to have some spoilers.
Yeah,
so
I was just
please,
about to ask that. Do you want to do spoilers
Yeah,
or not?
so
Because
please,
we have to hit the spoilers.
If you don't want spoilers, now would be the time to kind of skip ahead to the next part of all this. So, and I'll put some number in the description box of what time code that starts at when we're done with the spoilers. But the character development.
Let's just
Alan
discuss the
Oppenheimer.
first episode
Yeah,
and then go into the second.
Alan Oppenheimer as Mossman. Mossman being killed by Skeletor. Now played by Mark Hamill. The passing of the torch.
I did not pick up on that until you mentioned it.
The passing of the torch in that moment was so beautiful. And it was really, and there is, I read a statement where Kevin Smith did say, yes, that was on purpose. I mean, that was fantastic.
The amount of fan service that Kevin Smith was able to incorporate,
Yes.
and which we will discuss down later. But one thing that the first episode finally answered to me, well, actually, it was a couple of things. One, how would Teela find out that He-Man was Adam?
Mm-hmm.
The second one, how would she handle it?
Not well.
And it wasn't well. And therein lies the kickoff of your story. I mean, it was well done on how they got to the point where they needed to reintroduce it. Going into the second episode, and this might be a little controversial, what I might be able to say. I don't know if you were into comic books, but I'm sure you heard of it, the death of Superman.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, you've heard of the death of
Sure.
Superman.
Yeah.
Okay. For about, and I'm sure somebody's going to correct me, 10 months or a year, they didn't have Superman to follow, even though it was a Superman book. They followed Lois Lane. They followed Supergirl to find out where the story's going.
Okay.
So using that mentality and knowing that, hey, this is a fantasy show, they needed to follow somebody.
Well, and I think that it made sense to follow Teela, given the fact that anybody that's been in the fandom long enough knows who she is.
Yes, who she is.
That we know that she's the daughter of the sorceress and Duncan. So
He adopted by Duncan.
Well, yeah, but I mean, why wouldn't we follow her?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it make sense if the champion of Eternia has fallen, that you're following somebody who is destined and doesn't even know she's destined for it to take the mantle of the sorceress? I think that makes sense. Where people were saying this doesn't make sense and it's too much Teela, whatever.
Well, the show's called Revelation.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what the revelation is? It's the end of the story.
Mm-hmm.
So when what's the revelation? He-Man and Skeletor finally fight and they kill each other.
Well, the revelation
Done.
is where the secrets of Grayskull are. They're in that orb that's underneath in the caverns. It's the revelation that Adam and He-Man were the same person to both the king,
right,
who doesn't know, and it's also a revelation that Marlena knows.
That was beautiful.
Unless, of course, you happen to remember that one little teeny tiny episode of the original series. That Teela doesn't. All these things that come out, it's a complete revelation.
They're 40 years old.
Yeah.
How do you not know this stuff from 40 years old and say that you're a fan and then just totally... Again, we're talking about people who might have been 5 or 6 and did what I did and watched the pretty colors and with no context of story whatsoever.
And the other great part is that you as you get into the following episodes, I thought the voice acting, these people took it very seriously. The writing was done very seriously. The performing was done very seriously. You really felt the characters.
That's the thing.
It was so well done.
And there's another thing. You're going after Teela. Well, what about Evil Lynn? Evil Lynn was just as much of that story as Teela was.
You're really following both.
You are.
Because they've both lost the overriding force in their life, the men in their lives, so to speak, that have previously kept them in the in the background, so to speak. Whether it's as a partner or subservient, as the case may be, nevertheless, there's a definite emergence of those two characters as they have to move forward and figure out how they're going to live their lives and what they're going to do.
And as you're following the story, you see where the villains are going because they no longer have Skeletor.
And speaking of can we talk for a minute about Triclops and the cult that he forms? I loved that. I know there are some people who were sort of like meh with it, but I don't know why I really got into that, and I loved that change, that evolution of that character, and him becoming this cult leader and all the technology and everything. I thought that was super cool. I really, really liked that.
Well, and it's funny that you should mention that because Henry Rollins does the voice of Triclops. Now, if you know who Henry Rollins is, he was the lead singer of a little band called Black Flag.
Yes.
Which means during his Black Flag days, do you really think he would be watching Masters of the Universe?
Probably not.
Probably not. In fact, if you showed him two Masters of the Universe characters, he'd have ideas of what that truly is representing. So I watched the afterwards of
Speaking of a good casting job, right?
Yeah.
When you think about what that character, perfect.
When they asked Henry Rollins how they felt about Triclops, he goes, "I just went into it thinking that, it's somebody who needs to speak complete sentences and scream louder than everybody else," which is kind of the fandom that showed up after
in a lot of ways, yeah.
But how he presented himself as the cult leader, knowing that he's going to play a cult leader, and he'll tell you himself he probably faked the entire thing because that's the kind of he's happy to get a job.
I am so excited to see what happens when Triclops and Skeletor come face to face in the second part, because now what was once a minion, if you will, he's now existing in a world that's diametrically opposed to Skeletor. Do we have another faction forming? You know what I mean? Like, how is that going to go?
Well, and as you saw through that scene, you see the technology. Trapjaw already had technology.
Yeah.
Whiplash, he became a cyborg.
Mm-hmm.
Triclops was already a cyborg. I want to find out who they're following because, Motherboard. Who's Motherboard?
I really hope it's a real character and she appears. I think that would be fabulous.
That would be great.
I think that I really, really do. Just someone all of a sudden, just as, Skeletor looks like he's going to do something, all of a sudden Motherboard appears and just smacks him around, I think would be really, really...
Or something.
Yeah, I think it'd be really, really special.
But speaking of members that you hadn't seen in a while, you get to Duncan and Orko.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Orko...
We're going to talk about Orko when we get to the other character that showed up.
Yeah.
But as they're going on their adventure, you see the magic slowly affect Orko, and Orko...
The lack of it, I guess we should
lack
say.
Of it. And you really start feeling for Orko in a way that you hadn't felt for Orko in ever.
Okay, I'm going to be... this is not really hating on anything with Masters of the Universe, but, as you got older as a kid... Orko became kind of annoying. And
yes!
I think that's the case for all the sidekicks, like T-Bob and Snarf and all those. We were like, they need to go away,
And Wheelie Cutter wants to
yeah. But somehow, Kevin took that character
and sympathized it.
And made you feel for him. And made you really care about that character. Again, great writing, great character development. There is a part in the story where they end up, the basic idea is they've got to get the two halves of the power sword.
Before we get there, we have to go through Merman.
But you're not even there yet, because they've decided, they figure out they need to get two halves of the power sword. One's in hell, one's in heaven, or the Eternia versions of them. And so they decide they're going into hell first. Merman appears as they're on the way there.
And the visual cues that Merman gave, because he's missing an eye now.
Yeah.
You are seeing what happens when Merman can no longer work with Skeletor, and those reserves that Merman used to have no longer has because he has to go it alone.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of pairing up and partnering with Skeletor, you see the effects on how it's affecting Merman.
Yeah.
I don't think he's left that sea since Skeletor got
probably not
essenced.
Yeah, and then they managed to get past Merman, and
who is Kevin Conroy?
Yes,
of all people. I mean, when you get that made me so happy seeing the scene, because they did the flashback scene of Skeletor and Triclops on the same side, knowing that for years they have been on different sides as Joker and Batman. Very enjoyable for me. Loved it.
Yeah, and then they get into Sub-Eternia, and who appears with Scareglow, played by Tony Todd.
Oh, they couldn't have chosen the Candyman. They chose the Candyman for the scariest character in the series.
I loved it. I absolutely loved the time in Sub-Eternia, and I thought Tony Todd was amazing.
What a great way to introduce a character that nobody's seen on screen before.
Yeah.
Ever.
Well, I think he may have appeared. I'm trying to remember if he appeared in the 2000X or not. But either way, they
if
really...
not, let us know.
Yeah, I was not a fan of that, so I didn't really watch it, so I apologize there for not knowing that.
We got to rewatch that so he can rewatch it, so he can correct himself.
Well, it wasn't 80s, so I... No, but... he just did a tremendous job, and of course, this is where they're finally through and they're going to escape. And can I just throw out from a perspective of the going through hell and everything else? They're retelling the Divine Comedy.
Yeah, it's called Revelation.
Yeah, they go through. It's the journey. They go through hell, and now they're going into heaven or whatever, and that heaven sort of appears more like. There's more of a point there right early on where it's more like purgatory, where Tila's having to face with the demons and everything associated with losing Adam and all this other stuff, and it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. Good work on the part of Kevin and the writers and so forth. But anyway, as they're leaving and escaping, somebody ends up sacrificing themselves.
Here's the thing, and there lies the thing, because everybody got all hurt that they killed Orko.
I'm not sure.
They hang on. They killed Orko like they killed Optimus Prime.
Yeah, no one's ever really gone.
Like they killed Gandalf. To a lesser extent, like they killed Obi-Wan Kenobi, like they killed Superman. Like you can look at other fandoms and see all the characters they killed off.
It's amazing how quickly people forget the basics of epic tale storytelling. They forget that. They forget the characters die and come back and everything. This is not unusual.
And I don't think he died. I think what happened was he and Scareglow transported to a different dimension.
Yeah, I think you're going to end up seeing a scene in the next wave of them. You watch and see if there's not a nod to Lord of the Rings, and you see them fighting it out.
There already was a nod to Lord of the Rings.
What's his name with the Balrog, and then I think that's what that's what will end up happening.
Orko's last line is "Time for you to return to the shadows," or paraphrasing, which is what Gandalf said to the Balrog.
Yeah.
I mean, it's there. The foreshadowing is there. You just have to find it, and the big explosion happens because they used an extreme amount of magic that pushed them back.
And then I really loved they get now to heaven, and all of the old He-Mans are there.
Yes.
All of the previous champions of Grayskull are there, which was amazing.
Which was great. Seeing Wundar made me realize, it's like, they finally figured out how to get him in the story. Yeah. I'm so happy
They're all in there, and they managed to now have two halves of the power sword. Roboto sacrifices himself, getting them reforged together.
Yeah.
Ultimately, Adam decides, I'm going to return, and we are going to whoop Skeletor, or we're going to whoop ass. We're going to bring the magic back to Eternia. They get back only to find out, as they're trying to save everything, that who happened to hide his essence in Evelyn's staff this whole time? The evil Skeletor, who, before Adam can change into He-Man, stabs him, runs him through, presumably killing Adam, although you did not necessarily see Adam die, so why everyone's like, Adam died again? We didn't see that.
No.
We didn't see that. We saw Adam get wounded, mortally wounded, but whether or not he dies, I don't think that's been established yet.
Now, here's a question I have for you. Do you think that was planned out by Skeletor?
Yes.
So you think his plan was break the orb, get in a fight with He-Man, where He-Man stabs Skeletor, separation of the sword, jump into the essence, and then wait for them to reforge the sword?
I think so, because the way he words it when he comes back there, it leads you to believe that this was the plan all along, that this was what he needed in order to make sure he could capture the Sword of Grayskull. So, and of course now, wielding the sword, with Adam down, he calls upon the power of Grayskull and now becomes Skelegod. And I love the people that are saying, well, that wouldn't happen. He did it in the movie.
He did it in the movie.
He did it. As a matter of fact, they even allude to the movie when he says, now I, Skeletor, am master of the universe. They take the line right from there.
Yeah, only he's not glittery and shiny.
Yeah, he didn't bedazzle himself, as Adrian said. Yeah, so, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It's a hell of a cliffhanger.
I really liked it.
I'm very anxious to see the second part. I am, if they do a watch party at Kevin's shop again, I think I'm going to go to it if I can get there. I would really like to. It's only in New Jersey. We're not that far away.
Oh, and I've been to the Secret Stash.
Yeah,
it's not a bad drive from where we're at.
Yeah, so but I think I'd like to do that. But just a for those of you who have not seen it and are hearing all these horrible things or whatever, my advice: give it a shot.
Now is when you come back.
Yes, now is where the spoilers have ended, guys.
Spoilers are ended.
Spoilers have ended. And again, if you're hearing all this fluff and puff about it and you're not sure, you're thinking, wow, a lot of these people hate it.
Go watch it.
Give it a shot.
Go watch it. Come up with your own opinion.
Maybe you'll like it. Maybe you won't. And regardless of which it is, that's fine.
Yeah.
It's okay to not like something. But just don't ruin it for everybody else. I loved it. He loved it. I know Alan down at Attorney of Dreams, he loved it. And most of the people we know that have watched it loved it.
Our cohorts really love it because they grew up with the legacy, what's the word that I'm looking for?
We grew up with the original franchise and the nostalgia of it.
Not just the lore.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
The story behind it.
Yeah, and it's great to see it again.
And it
really is.
And it was nice to see a He-Man episode that didn't end after 22 minutes, only to reset and go back and do the whole other thing.
For me, I would give it 4.5 stars easy.
I'm not scoring it yet because it's not done. I don't give credit for half work.
The first half I will because it has a beginning, middle, and end. So I will score it. I definitely give it a 4.5. The only thing that keeps it away from a 5 for me is I wish it would have been a little bit longer.
Therein lies the reason, because I can't judge it because I want to judge all 10 episodes instead of 5. It did exactly what it was supposed to do.
It did,
and that was leave me wanting more.
Absolutely.
And that's how you know you have a good story, instead of watching like the first 2 episodes and then writing it off. So that was our review of He-Man. Not He-Man.
Masters of the Universe Revelation.
Of the Universe Revelation. We hope you enjoy it. We hope you enjoyed this video. And remember, like what you want, don't like what you don't want. Words and phrases. I didn't really think this through.
Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you next time, allies.